Hey, what's up, all my positive people? Welcome back to the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast, your home for positive, informative, and life-changing conversations. And let me tell you something, this episode is truly going to be a life-changing conversation, and I'm going to tell you why. On this episode, I'm interviewing a gentleman by the name of Richard McLemore. Richard served a life sentence after he committed a heinous crime as a juvenile. Since getting out, though, Richard has completely dedicated his life to community servitude. All he does is serve the community. He's completely changed his life around. And more importantly, he's not a recidivism victim, meaning he doesn't go back and forth to jail, back and forth to prison. And on this episode, he's going to tell us how he changed his life around, and more importantly, how he got into that situation as a juvenile, and what maybe you, your family members, or your kids can do to stay out of those kind of situations. This is definitely a life-changing conversation. Check it out. And welcome to the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast, your home for positive, informative, and life-changing conversations and content. And as always, our podcast is hosted by William Schultz. We hope you enjoy today's episode. Hey, what's up, all my positive people out there, man? Welcome to the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast, your home for positive, informative, and life-changing conversations. We have a really great show for you today. Today, our show is it's designed to kind of reach people out there that might be struggling with the system. You know, there's a lot of people out there that have gone through the system and maybe they're kind of feel trapped, and they don't know how they're going to get out. And then we know that the recidivism rate with people that go to prison is really high, really high. And today I have an extremely special guest. I have a brother that has been in the prison system for a very large chunk of his life. And he was able to get out and stay out and completely change his life, turn into a very successful businessman, does a ton of work in the community, and is giving back to those same people. And what we're going to talk about today is, you know, what it takes to stay out, get out, stay out, get out, stay out. The things you need to do with your life in order to do that. So today I want to welcome my brother, man, my friend, Mr. Richard McLemore. How you doing, sir?
Oh, man, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it, man. This is dope. I love the format.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just glad to have you. I'm glad you agree to do this because, you know, this is personal for you. This is not, this isn't a show in terms of, it might be a podcast, but this is nothing that we're going to take lightly here today. So I just want to talk about, you know, how I know Brother Richard. We grew up together, but we didn't hang out together. I kind of knew of him because, you know, he was kind of a popular cat. Used to see him at Saints North with all the cats that were really fly, doing all the fly things, had all the girls, had all the ladies. You know, my man was out there doing it at a really young age. And we grew up around the same people. So the same circle of people I hang out with now, he hung out with then. So when he got home, you know, it was just like, oh, what's up? What's up? And, you know, kind of friendly faces. And, you know, because of family gatherings and things like that, we just kind of see each other, talk more often, social media, things like that. So, you know, a brother removed, right? A couple brothers removed. So that's how I met Brother Richard, man. And, you know, this is a really good brother. He actually doesn't know this, and I've never told him this, but I'm inspired by the way that he lives his life and the things that he's been able to overcome and accomplish. So I'm just really glad to have you here. So, you know, let's talk about, let's kind of set the stage here for our audience. And maybe we can talk about, you know, obviously, you know, you got you were incarcerated at a very young age, I believe at 17, if I'm correct. Maybe you can kind of talk about your incarceration and kind of like, let's just start there. Talk about when you got incarcerated, kind of what happened, and then we're going to kind of reverse engineer that and talk about what led up to that point.
So you want me to talk about straight incarceration and then go backwards?
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is say, hey, you know, I'd like to, for the audience to get some context and say, hey, you know, Brother Richard, I was locked up for XYZ amount of years for this issue. But here's where it all started, and here I got to that point because I want to bring value to the audience so they understand that we all have a starting point that got us to this situation. and because it's very important how you got out of it as well, right?
Right. Getting in and out is very important, right? Right. They say when you're going through hell, you keep on going, right? So it's the beginning and the end. Okay. So
Right.
in the middle, start in the middle then, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I was
Correct.
convicted in 1995, right? January 27th to be exact. At 10:59 a.m., my life ended, right? At least that part of my life forever, right? I felt like my existence was gone. I was pulled out of my shiny car that, that the brother was talking about. Will hit it on the head. I had a lot of shiny things in, right? So they pulled me out of my shiny car and slammed me and my shiny jewelry and my shiny phone and my shiny shoes on the concrete. And I'll never forget, there was this cop, this Asian cop. He leaned down real close because I don't think he wanted other people to hear it. And he whispered in my ear, "When you get out, cars will be flying." I was 17 years old at the time. I was arrested and charged with second-degree murder with intent. Now, at this time, I'm a youth, so the circumstances are a little bit different, right? You can't just dive right in like you would an adult and give them a bunch of charges. There's a different program when you're a juvenile. But because I was 17 and so close to being 18 years old, they wanted to do something that was called a certification, right? You can't do that without the individual volunteering for it or going through this whole process that's kind of expensive. Um, so what they told me, and Will, unpackage this for a reason, man, because it was really shisty, right? Um, they told me, hey, listen, we know you want a jury trial, because I did. Now you have to understand, I have a 17-year-old mind that's been influenced by illegal activities. That's why I wanted to make sure I understand what you're saying when I talk about this, because
Sure.
it's very important that we talk about the beginning and how this led up, right?
Correct.
Um, so my 17-year-old mind at the time is influenced by my drug dealings and that omniscient feeling I'm getting, because people in the neighborhood, I think, value me, but they're really afraid of me, right? And I
Yeah.
took some solace in that. I felt power about that, so I really thought I was somewhat untouchable. Now I'm now getting too deep in it. I'm from California. I'm from the West Coast. Like, I was born and raised in Long Beach, where not everything's investigated. So I didn't really understand. Once again, my 17-year-old mind couldn't really wrap around Minnesota caring about some black folks getting into some drug business. It happens
Sure.
all the time where I was from.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just, it's run of the mill.
Yep.
Um, so I assumed that if I had a couple of dollars and a couple of lawyers, that I would go home.
Yeah.
I would go home. So I never wanted to take a plea. I refused to take a plea. I hired a lawyer, hired a couple lawyers, and I was told by the prosecutor that if I waived certification, now in hindsight, this is a huge mistake, huge mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. If I waive certification, they won't charge me with anything else. I'll have time to work out. They're called lesser included. I don't want to get too far into the law, but
Sure. Sure.
anytime you're charged with a crime, you're never charged with just one thing. A lot of folks know this. If you get into an argument with someone, they're going to charge you with 5 different things.
Yeah.
So you plead out to at least one of them.
Yep. Yep.
So you
Yep.
don't have to spend that money, right? You don't
Yep.
spend that, waste that time. So
Yep.
I didn't want that. So I was told that they would not charge me anything. I'd get that one straight charge, and then my lawyer could go after all the lesser included, and then maybe I'll get out while I'm still young, they kept saying, right? So I went ahead and did that. I waived certification. Um, and man, it was a totally different process. Like, even how they frisk you, like how they handcuff you, the way they handle you. It's interesting how you can be 17 today and be a kid, and then be certified and still 17 tomorrow, but handled like an adult, right? So I
Right.
had the Ramsey
Right.
County Sheriff come and get me from the juvenile facility I was at, take me to the adult facility. And by the time I got there, the prosecutor, the same prosecutor who guaranteed me they wouldn't add any charges, um, had 2 jury indictments, grand jury indictments for first degree murder.
Hmm.
So now
At that
I'm
point,
17.
Brother Richard, at that point, had you spoken to an attorney at that point, or did you kind of like, oh, I kind of know what I'm doing. I'm going to wait. Oh, he said he's going to waive my right. Now I'll get my attorney on this afterwards. Again, as a 17-year-old, is that where your mind was at? And had you spoken to an attorney when you made that deal?
Yes, I had. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My attorney was the one that had to relay the information. I never actually saw or spoke to the prosecutor. Everything came through my lawyer.
Wow. Wow. Do you
Yeah.
think the lawyer had to fix it? Like, do you think they didn't take you serious either, or your case serious? They just wanted the money that you had, or?
It's a barter system, man, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I mean, that's kind of how it is. If you're in these offices and these corridors as lawyers, as these professionals, they talk a lot. Um, and I felt like my lawyer at the time. That's why I didn't have him throughout my trial. I felt like at the time he was using me for another case, like he was giving up my case to get maybe a
Sure.
little influence on another case. You know what I
Sure.
mean? 'Cause there's
Sure.
no way he should let me waive my certification without making sure that they couldn't backdoor me like that and charge me with some other things. And I actually never spoke to him after those indictments. I never spoke to him again. Like
Sure.
he never
Sure.
followed up. So,
So,
so, so
so
yeah.
here you
So
are. You're getting indicted now as a 17-year-old for what looks like a first-degree murder. Let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. So this is where we're at. We know this shit's real now. Let's go back. Let's talk about how you first got into the street life. Like, what was, you said you were from Long Beach, California. Like, what was your environment like to where when you're 17, you had the mind state of, I can live in the fast life? Like, how did you get to that point?
right, right. I appreciate that. Okay. So before we get there though, I mean, I want to clarify this, man. It's not one count of murder one. It was two counts.
Okay.
And the thing about that, it wasn't going to run consecutively, it was going to run concurrently. So I went from looking at maybe 20 years to looking at almost 90 years in prison. That's
Okay.
that big difference I'm
Okay.
talking about
Okay.
that you have to
Okay.
understand, right?
Yep. Yep.
So you're right. It got really real for me. It got really serious for me in a second, right? All right. So how do you get here, right? I'm from Long Beach. I actually came from a middle class a family originally. My mom used to work for Georgia Pacific. They're one of the bigger paper companies.
Hmm.
You see them all over and you don't realize it, but they're in most toilet stalls, right? That's
Yes.
that
Yeah.
economy toilet
GP.
paper
They
you
got the
see. So
GP
Georgia
logo.
Pacific is the international, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. You're
Yeah.
right, right. So my mom had a great job with them, right? When they were still up and coming back in the '90s. So she was incredibly intelligent and we lived a good lifestyle. I didn't really let me know if my connection gets a little unstable because it's saying unstable on my end. But I didn't really know poverty firsthand right away. Uh I didn't know what poverty looked and tasted like and really felt like until my mom dropped me off for school one day. Like any other day, she got me ready for school. I had breakfast and then she dropped me off and then she went to work. But this day, there was this guy in a semi truck who had been driving all night. Now, this is before they had the laws about, the regulations about how long
Mm.
truckers can go, right? So he's just going hard. And I think he said he had been going about 48 hours or something crazy. And he fell asleep behind the wheel at about 7:30 in the morning on the 405 freeway, which is one of the biggest freeways in California during rush hour. And rush hour there is stop dead traffic. So he's going 65, 70 and barrels into traffic sleep.
Mm.
My mom was one of the first cars he hit.
Oh.
Um, yeah, she had just got a brand new Honda Accord, and if you know about Hondas, they've always been plastic, somewhat
Yeah.
fragile cars, right?
Yeah.
So this truck hits my mom's car going 70 miles an hour and knocks it completely off the freeway. Um, for all intents and purposes, my mom should have died. Since then she's had 7 back surgeries, right?
Wow.
But she should have died. But she's a single mom. I really feel like she lived because she had a young black son at home and she needed to get home to her boy, right? Um, so she lived, but life drastically changed. She couldn't go to that nice job she had. She couldn't even walk
Yeah.
for a very long time with and everything and the surgeries, and every time she went back to surgery there was that convalescence time. So I mean, like, she never was right again, right? So it went from me having a single parent who was watchful and attentive and helped me with those things and influential in my life to all of a sudden having nobody. Now my rock is crumbling, right?
Mm.
She's laid up in bed. She can't, no provision. Now as a young boy, I feel like I have to take over, right? I have to have some type of vested interest. I have to help out. But I'm too young. We're in California. We end up losing our place. I'm so young, I don't even realize it, to be honest. And this is a trick. My mom used to get me to bed in the back seat. And then every morning I'd wake up at McDonald's and I'd be to go play and I'd get dressed in the bathrooms. And as a young kid, Go ahead. Go ahead and
I
ask
was
the
going to say,
question.
so what you're saying is that this accident forced you guys to lose your home. So what you're describing right now is that you're basically homeless at this point in time.
Right, right. And that was like the first wave, right? That's when I first started realizing some stuff didn't change, right?
Yeah.
But she packaged it so well as my mom, I just didn't really realize it. I like this is getting rough on us. We're on a trip, right? It's
Yeah.
just a long 2, 3, 4, 5 month trip. It didn't get bad until she got pneumonia. Now she has the injuries to her back.
Mm.
We're living in the car, and then she gets pneumonia because we're sleeping in rest stops now. Um, and my family here in Minnesota, I have an extremely large family here in Minnesota. They're hearing about this now. Up until this point, she's kind of keeping it a secret. But when she
Yeah.
gets pneumonia, they call my grandma, her mother, because who's this? What are we gonna do with this kid? This woman's passed out. Like it was a real
Right. Right.
emergency,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So my grandma finds out and she sends us $200. And back then it was 1990. $200 was a lot more money. And she said, bring my grandson back here to Minnesota. I don't know why you guys are out in California, struggling like you don't have no family.
Right.
So it was really great. But by then, Will, you have to understand, I wasn't that same sweet kid anymore.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
seen some stuff. I had experienced some stuff. I had seen some people use my mom, and it just really changed me at my core.
Yeah.
So when I came to Minnesota, my sole purpose was to make sure that no one used my mother and that I could step up as a man in the household and make some money. So that was like
Sure.
my sole thing I wanted to do
How
in
old were you at
Minnesota.
that time then? About the time you guys hit Minnesota, how old do you think you were?
I know exactly how old I was, 12 years old.
So about seventh grade, you're about to hit junior high, going through puberty, things of that nature, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm walking over the bridge, going to Hazel Park in East St. Paul.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
right there,
Yep.
middle school. Yes, so
Yep.
exactly
Yep.
right. I'm in 7th grade. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So tell us, man, you hit Minnesota and you seem like kind of lost some of your innocence. And it's not like, it's not like you asked for this. This is something that just happened, like it just really, really bad luck, just really bad circumstances. So now your mentality has changed and you're stepping into a new environment. So talk a little bit about that. And because I'm guessing this is where things start changing a little bit for you.
Yeah, they really do, because up until this point, my influences were like I was a Boy Scout. I was an archery champ. I was in
Mm.
karate. I was in all these pro-social activities that really kept me engaged. And now I'm in Minnesota with no social circle, and I don't participate in nothing. You can play basketball around the corner, but that's it, right?
Yeah.
I like basketball, but that wasn't my main interest. In California, it was just a little more diverse. I wanted a bow and arrow. I wanted to
Right.
swim. You
Right.
know,
Right.
so all of my desires were just gone. But there was a grimier side that I knew I had picked up on too, because one of the places we stayed at for a very long time was Long Beach, California, specifically the east side of Long Beach on MLK Boulevard. It got so bad over there sometimes that walking to school, it was common practice to have to step over somebody,
Yeah.
maybe a few people that were passed out along the way, right?
Yep.
And I had to fight almost every day. I mean, in California, when they say street gangs, it means that literally every single street, every single block is a different hood, is a different neighborhood. And there's no school buses out there. So you have to walk to the public
Yeah.
transport like all the other kids. So
Yeah.
you walk through 2 or 3 neighborhoods. So you fight 2 or 3 times, or you run 2 or 3 times.
Right. Right.
So I
Yeah.
wasn't totally innocent. I knew violence and I knew how to protect myself, but that wasn't me, right? I still wasn't really sold on being like a thug, like trying
Yeah.
to be tough. I really wanted just to be a kid, right?
Yeah.
Wanted to be a kid, but having that duality of thinking where I needed to take care of my mom, it made me start doing petty crimes, right? That's why I'm packaged like this. I didn't just jump right out there.
Sure.
I started off with like stealing people's tires and breaking in people's cars and stealing out the money or the cassette tapes at the time, maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
CD, whatever I could unload for a couple of dollars, whatever you had in your trunk. So really petty thefts. Run out in stores, where you go in and you steal a couple of things, and you run as fast as you can and
Yeah.
hope they don't
Yeah.
catch you, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
this petty stuff. it took some time for me to graduate into this to what you saw and what you spoke about, right?
Did you ever do any like jail time as a juvenile prior to your major case, that your conviction, the case you got?
Oh yeah, I became like what do they call it? A repeat juvenile, a repeat offender. You know, I
A
don't know if it's that
delinquent,
kind of, yeah,
juvenile
delinquent.
delinquent.
Yeah, juvenile delinquent. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was a revolving door. So, and I got so good that I understood exactly when I was going, what time gym was, if I was going to make it before dinner. Like
yeah.
I knew the whole routine. Yes, because once again, I wasn't a criminal. I didn't have any experience. I had to make my bones. I had to learn, and I made my mistakes. I think my blessing was that in juvenile facilities, there's not a lot of there's for petty crimes, there's not a lot they can do. Let's just put it that way. They put
Sure,
you on a bracelet. It didn't make an impact because whatever they did didn't change my circumstances for the better. So there was
sure.
nothing they could do that could stop me from wanting to go out and make money. It didn't matter.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
they
yeah,
let me out, I was going to go break the law.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah,
Now I
yeah.
gotta say, man, you gotta think about this though, right? Now, when I came here in my innocence, I did try to work. Man, I've worked at almost every fast food restaurant. Now, this is all before 17, right? Almost
Mm-hmm.
every fast food restaurant. I've worked at the state fair. I work at my high school, my middle school. I would cut grass. I would shovel snow. But the problem I would have is that as a juvenile, you cannot, and this was back then, I could not work more than 17 hours in a
Yeah,
7-day period,
yeah, yeah,
because of, the education laws and things like that.
yeah, yeah,
So no matter how much I worked and how much I hustled, it was not sustainable income. So I got to the point where I felt like I didn't have a choice. My
yeah,
mom wasn't working. We had nowhere to go. We were living with my grandmother. Our car was going out. I mean,
yeah,
I could
yeah,
tell that things were getting bad. I'm wearing secondhand clothes.
yeah.
I'm getting it now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this. So kind of fast forward, we're going to fast forward a little bit. And I want to talk about what was your environment like around you around the time, let's say a month or two before you catch your case, that fateful night. What kind of people were around you? What kind of lifestyle were you living? What was kind of like your daily environment? You know what I'm saying? Kind of paint a picture, because I think it's important. I want people to connect. I want brothers and sisters and other people out there to connect, maybe some comparisons, so they can look at themselves and say, oh shit, maybe I gotta be careful. What was kind of the environment you were around? Because obviously you're not going to just come from a sound mind, right? Commit, have this incident happen, right? And then, that's not going to happen. There's things that lead up to it. There's an environment that you're in that kind of puts you in that mind state where you can actually have something like this happen.
Right, right. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. So my environment at the time. So fast forwarding, right? By this time, I'm hanging around. We'll call it a clique, right? We were never, some people may label as a gang by definition, right? But we were just a bunch of friends that really knew each other, that came from all impoverished backgrounds, and we had a hustle mentality. The 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 problem with that was there was about 30 of us. It was an extremely large group of folks, but there was about 7 of us that really believed in selling drugs, right? That was our like, and that comes with violence, right? Um, so at that time, um, I'm living in a condo downtown at downtown St. Paul at the Point Apartments. They're still there.
Yep.
Um, Now I have like 2 or 3 cars I swap out and trade out because I don't want people knowing what I drive and all that crazy stuff. My mom
And this
has
is
a
at 17 years old. At 17 years old.
17 years old.
Yeah.
17 years old. My mom has a house out in Maplewood, um, 3-bedroom, split level, 2.5 car garage, like an extremely nice house, in a great residential neighborhood in a cul-de-sac. So, she's taken care of now. And I'm going to Chicago every single week. Every single week I'm going to Chicago because we're selling that much dope. We're selling that much drugs, right? So
Yeah.
we have to go re-up. So 3 or 4 of us would get in the car and we would drive down there. We'd buy it. We'd stash it all through the car and we would drive it back.
Yeah.
We did this every single week for about 2 years. So there's a lot of cash, a lot of cash, like more than you could do. I couldn't spend it. I just couldn't. I couldn't spend it. I mean, there was nothing I wanted, right? Um, so I had, like I said, I had this God complex. Um, but the interesting thing, man, is I always went to school though. Um, me and actually a few of my friends believed in like really going to school. A few of them just didn't really value education. They came from different backgrounds. But my mom really asked only one thing of me, you know, because by now she knows what I'm doing. I mean,
Yeah.
she's well aware of what I'm involved in.
Yep.
Um, yeah, but she just said, son, just go to school. You know, you'll grow out of this. You can educate yourself out of this. You're smarter than this, or you will be if you keep going to school, right?
Yep.
And I kept my words. You know, I did graduate. I ended up going to college, and we could talk about all that. But I mean, so at this time, I'm doing all these illegal activities all night, but I'm still getting up every morning by 7 a.m. and getting my butt to school and
Right.
maintaining a B average. Right. I'm looking at scholarships. Right. While I'm
Yeah.
doing all this illegal stuff. Now to package that, man, you say a couple months before, what is my environment like? That is my environment. But what I didn't tell my friends is I actually had got a scholarship to the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs.
Now,
Like I was,
but why didn't you tell your friends that? Like, what's the, did you think they were going to tease you? Did you think that that wasn't hard? Why wouldn't you tell your friends? Like, why didn't you feel comfortable telling them
oh no, it wasn't that. I really think they would have told me to go, and I didn't want to go.
that?
I didn't
Okay.
want someone talking me into something that I knew better. Like, but that was permanently gone. That means dope money's gone. Being take care of my mom's gone. I got my apartment, I got car notes, I got a mortgage. I mean, I have a lot of financial responsibilities, and none of the stuff's in my name. So all the people, I have to pay the people to keep it in their name.
Yeah.
So I now have a lot of responsibilities, and I just didn't want my friends telling me to go when they heard
Right.
about it, because they really would have. I really think they would have. They'd have been supportive. So it wasn't that I was scared. I just didn't want to be talked into something that I knew was good for me.
So leading up to this incident, your whole mind state was just you're 100% street at this time. Probably more on some like street hustler shit than you are on like some straight up gang banging, thugging, right? You're just more about getting money, messing with the ladies, taking care of your family. That's where your mind state is. That's the environment you're in, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah,
And all
definitely.
the
Yeah,
things that come with
yeah,
that fast life, right? The
right,
danger,
right. The
the
thing,
police, the constant looking over your back, not trusting everybody. The 7 people you're probably talking about out of that 30 are probably the only 7 people you probably trusted. And I'm gonna guess in that you probably could have whittled that down to 2 or 3, you know what I'm saying? If it really came down to it, and so and that's not, and now that we're older, I've been in the streets too. So now that we're both older, I've learned that that's no way to live. Actually, that actually can breed a lot of these behaviors that we manifest into situations where we do violent things and commit crimes and do that, because there's a lot of pressure there. So
right.
let's talk. So we kind of got what led up to this. We kind of got your backstory. We kind of got where you're going at, what's going on leading up to this incident. Let's talk about getting out. Let's talk about how long have you been out of prison?
I got out May 22nd, 2013.
And how much
So
time did you do in total?
uh, about 20 years.
Wow. And a lot of people like I do that are still in the streets and still battle with that system and going back and forth. A guy does 2 or 3 years, gets home for a year, maybe 2 years, goes back. How were you able to get out? Because you basically your whole adult life was spent up until that point was spent behind bars. So that for a lot of people becoming, what do you
Institutionalized.
institutionalized. Thank you. So how are you able to come out and build a life for yourself?
Mhm. Um, you're that street man. It's insidious, right? There is nothing good about it, but but if you're a good hustler, you learn that you're able to hustle, that you're able to get up and do it, right? And that's a transferable skill. Um, so in speaking about getting out, I grew up being a hustler, and up until that point, my hustle was always illegal activities, right? Some of the greatest hustlers in the world have Fortune 500 companies and are great thinkers, right? You don't necessarily, it doesn't always have to be for something, evil or something sinister. So I took that hustle and I used it to get me off the garage floor, right? Because when I was released to a garage floor, literally a cement floor I slept on.
Wow.
And I was told by my PO, my agent at the time, that I have 60 days, exactly 2 months, to find housing and sustainable employment, meaning no temporary jobs, none of that McDonald's. Like, you need a job that's going to pay your bills. And if you don't have that in 60 days, I'm going to pick you up and we're going to take you back to prison so you can think about it a little longer.
Mm, mm, mm.
Right.
And
So,
then and this is coming from a man who has, at that point in time, hasn't really been a man on the outside, you know, in terms of those really crucial developmental years. And I think it's important. I just want to just, you know, for the people listening, just think about that. Think about how completely, you know, they call it corrections, but think about how incorrect that is. You're basically setting somebody up to fail, right? So if you're, you know, not a strong-minded person, it's going to be very difficult to get up off the garage floor and dust yourself off and go. I mean, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure people listening understood that the odds are stacked against you. And hey, you know, you committed a crime, so nobody's sitting here, you know, giving you, you know, saying how poor you, but you served your time.
Right.
So at that point in time, it's like, hey, you can't keep sticking this knife in me now. You know, at least give me some opportunity. So talk about that. So you scrape yourself off the garage floor. What how do you do this?
Right. So obviously it didn't start with, you know, the garage floor. You know, I knew what I was returning to. I knew where I was going. I knew the issues and struggles I was going to have. Right. It started the day really I got locked up. You know, you talk about how this can be a value and a resource to people. Right. I'll say to folks that are incarcerated, that are looking at incarceration, that are coming out of incarceration, it's all about preparation. Right. Um, uh, I knew the struggles I had, so I educated myself around them, right? I got 3 college degrees, one of them in psychology. I needed to figure out kind of, you know, I didn't feel comfortable talking to people, but I knew if I read about some stuff, maybe I could kind of figure out and kind of research a little bit myself and come to an understanding. Really what I'm saying is forgive myself, right? I did something horrible. I did something completely horrible, right? And I had to come to terms with myself. So really, man, I'm going to tell you, Will, it was education, man. A lot of folks go to prison and they want an easy prison stay. So they get a job in the kitchen or in one of those industry plants where they pay a little more money. There's some thinking behind that. They pay a little more money as an incentive. The problem is you don't learn any skills, those transferable skills that you can use when you get out. So when you get out and all you've been doing is making food for other people or making widgets in an industry plant that's only located in prisons because no one makes widgets in the real world, right? You find yourself with no skill set, but you had an easy prison stay, right? So it's tough. It's a tough trade-off. But you have to get that education, man. You have to get that foundation. You know, it's like the hierarchy of needs. You know, if we're talking about, you know, just theories around this, if you don't have that foundation, you can't build on nothing. Yeah. So I dusted myself off by realizing that I got to go to school and meet some things and make some connections. So before I got out, I established a connection with a program called AVP, Alternatives to Violence Project. They used to come in and just do weekly workshops. By the time I got out, I had built enough relationships with them where I told them I needed a job, and they guaranteed me when I got out, they would hire me. So
what kind of workshops were they doing?
They do psychosocial workshops on pretty much soft skill building. So I'd like folks to Google them because they do a lot of different things, but really it's a dispute resolution technique where they sit people down in the circle process. Now we're talking about traditional circles, right? All right. And you have this authentic conversations about relationship building. You go historical. Hey, this is what happened to me that makes me who I am. Futuristic. I want to be this person, but I don't know how to get there. So you have these tough conversations in concentric circles or on one-on-one dialogues, and really you build community. So AVP is a really dynamic program, and they use things like laughter and games to help people engage to get to those hard topics that they're not so easy to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to remember they're doing this in prison. You know, in prisons, some of the hardest folks in Minnesota, the hardened folks, the people that no one wants to talk to, they're going in and doing these workshops with, right? So it's pretty amazing the work they're able to do inside of a facility. So that's what AVP is.
So you were able to get in this program, and that helped you build some skills to get out. So when did you start feeling like you were getting on your feet? And let's go back. Did you get a job in 2 months? Were you able to find housing in 2 months? How were you able to stay ahead of that that pace right there.
Yeah, man, it was tough, right? So I told you I had the job through AVP, and they came through, but it was only a part-time job. So I kept looking. I built up my networks, man, talking to people, letting people know I was getting out, tell them I was looking for work. I did the work of making a resume. That's not always easy. When you've never done something like that, you don't understand what to put on there, right? You don't know how to word things, precisely, and you don't know all those catchphrases that you're supposed to put on there so your resume makes it past that electronic stage, right? So
Yeah.
so I learned, right? I built up my resume, and I ended up getting a job. And big ups to this program, Twin City Rise, right? They're a work development program. They're a work readiness program as well. But they hook people up with jobs, and they employed me as a recruiter, which meant I went out and tried to bring people into the program for
Very
them.
nice.
Yeah, so that was my first real employment as an adult, working full time, benefits, all the extras for a nonprofit. So between the income from my part time job with AVP and my full time job with Twin City Rise, I was able to get off that garage floor. My first housing as an adult, I was extorted because landlords don't like renting to people with backgrounds. So I had to pay $1,500 a month for a
Mm,
studio for
wow.
about 6 months. I know, crazy.
Wow.
For about 6 months because I needed to get off that garage floor,
Yep.
until I was able to find better housing. And I'll never forget, a brother of mine, man, I don't want to put his name out there, but a good Asian brother of mine, man, he's like family now. He owned the apartment building. He sat down with me and he says, man, you told me you wanted to talk to me, that you have some barriers, right? So I told him what I told folks here about my background and how I'm just as impacted, but I'm not that person anymore. And when he picked his mouth up off his desk, he was like, well, I've never had someone sit in front of me and just be that candid and that honest before. And I really don't think I have to do a background check because there really can't be anything worse, right? Like, you just gave it to me.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he said, because of your honesty, he says, if you can write me a check right now, I'll rent to you. So
Wow.
just like that, my rent went from $1,500 for a studio to $750
Mm,
with the garage for a 2 bedroom. So
yes, yes.
all of a sudden had great housing overnight.
Yep.
Um,
And
so with that,
and and you had more money now that you could deploy in other areas of your life, where you can spend a little more
exactly.
on your wardrobe, spend a little, and that's going to help you bring things to your network. You know what I'm saying? Where you can present yourself a little better, feel a little, and just feel better about yourself, right?
Well, I'm going to tell you what it did is it allowed me to save money. And what I did is I took that 750. I still was paying 1,500 a month. I ended up buying my first rental property with it.
Mm, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
So
So let's talk about that. So
can we pause real quick? Cause
yeah,
I just want to put my charger up. I didn't realize we'd be running and my
yeah.
computer's
Go
low. I don't
ahead. Go
want to
ahead.
start talking now. So let give me about 30 seconds here.
No worries.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that, man.
No
I was on
worries.
a
No
2-hour
worries.
meeting
No
before
worries.
this, right? Because that's why we had to change the time. So,
Well,
man,
no, and
my
I
little
appreciate
my
you
little
still.
Apple's been working today.
I appreciate you taking the time out, man. I mean, I think we both go pretty hard. You know what I'm saying? So, but I appreciate you taking the time out. I think
Right,
this is an important conversation. So what I wanted to talk about was,
definitely.
the mentality that you have, and I guess I'm curious to know because I have some friends that, well, we both have some people that we both know that got out and stayed out, and we both have some friends
Mhm.
that can't get out, don't want to stay out. And then there's these other guys that I want to talk to and gals that they keep going back or they keep hanging around these same kind of individuals and stuff. But we know that they really want to get it together. What's the mentality that you have now that you had to get out of that situation versus the mentality that those people that want to get out but they can't? What do they need to hear today? So maybe something will click in them. They can say, all right, these are the three. Matter of fact, what are three things they have to do to get started on the right track?
Okay, so first thing, right, is you got to stop pleasing people, man. You got to be like totally in love with yourself, right? That comes with forgiveness. A lot of people rotate in and out of prison out of guilt, and they, that self-loathing. Then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right now, they're in the cycle and they just can't get right. You gotta really like be your number one champion, right? So just stop kind of, stop worrying about what other people say and what they think about you, and be your champion and just do what you're going to do. Don't even tell people about it. Just do what you're going to do, right? You
Yeah.
know, just build your empire however you see it. Second thing, right, is you got to be willing to do the work. If you're going to be your number one fan, you got to be your number one critic to you. Right? People get out and it's always that woe is me mentality, right? I need some help. I need some resources. No one's here for me. I mean, you need to be build those resources up on your own, but you gotta be strong in that regard. And there's no other easy way to say that. It's unfortunate, but you just have to you have to be tough.
Yeah.
You gotta be willing to do that work. Third thing, right? This is kind of tough to say. Uh, you got to cut some slack. You got to break up with some people. It's easy to break up when you're in this. I shouldn't say easy, but it's more manageable when you're in these interpersonal relationships, right? When you're dating someone and it's not going well, you find out something you don't like. You build up that passion, you build up that fire to dump them, to get rid of them, to get them out your life because there's no good for you anymore. But we don't do that with our friends, right?
Mm,
We allow our
mm.
friends to step on us and step over us time and time again in the name of loving our friends. And that's just my friend, and that's just they just been around. Man, you gotta let some folks go. I mean,
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
do.
One
Really
thing,
do.
I
So
went,
that would be my.
no, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say that'd be my. I was gonna say that'd be my three things, man. You really just gotta and you really just gotta focus on. I'm sorry, did I cut you off? You said
No, because
something.
I was gonna just expound on that point. A couple years ago, because
Go ahead, go
I've
ahead.
gone through a transformation, and a couple years ago, I realized that we sometimes value friendships based on experiences. And I was looking at myself, and I was like, well, shit, I'm over here doing these kind of things, and some people that I love are over here doing these kind of things. Do I still have to? I felt guilty for not hanging out with them and doing those type of things that I used to do. But then I realized, I was like, wait a second, our friendship really is only based on the experiences that we shared together. They're not really based on what I'm doing now or where I want to go. I shouldn't feel guilty. I shouldn't feel guilty to cut those people off, or at least back up off of them. And honestly, if those people truly love me, they're going to be okay with me backing away from them. Anybody that guilts you into, hey man, where you been at? And you're doing good, to me, that's always an indicator like, man, I probably don't want to hang around this person. If somebody says to you, hey man, where you been at? You doing real good, bro. Hey man, it's good to see you. But whenever like, where you been at, bro? How come we don't ever come around no more? That's a big red flag for me these days.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a book by Dr. Verna Price, right? The Power of People. The four kinds of people, and she talks about that. When she talks about building up your circle, you have the inner circle, right? The inner sanctum, and that's a choice though. Who's in your inner sanctum should be a choice, right? Even down to your mama, right? You should decide who's in your inner circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not because they're your parent, not because of your brother or sister, but because they truly add value and influence in your life. And what you're talking about is just that. It's okay to have that inner circle, and then it's okay to have that outer circle, right, of friends, on the peripheral that you say what's up to and that you can adapt to, and every once in a while you go watch a football game with, or maybe go have a beer with here and there, and catch up on old times.
Yeah.
But that's not your inner circle, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. But it's about manage those relationships. They shouldn't guilt you, because I still feel like you should make time for your folks. I really do. I don't feel like you should totally like dismiss people. I love people, right? People that reach for me in so many different ways. Who am I to turn my back on anybody, right?
Yeah.
But I do realize that a lot of my friends are not on my inner circle,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
They don't need to know that, but I know that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
manage your relationships, right?
Well, and also if we're talking about criminal past, right, and behavior, if you are around that too much, then you're going to automatically get, if I spend 365 days, then 300 of those days are spent in that criminal element at the bar doing hood shit. I am myself, and most people aren't humanly strong enough to resist those temptations and to not participate in that environment, because you are what you eat. I always say you are what you consume, right? So if I'm consuming gangster vibes constantly, I'm gonna start doing gangster shit. And that's just human nature. We're not robots.
That's right. What's that saying? If you hang around a barbershop, something's gonna get cut.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh, you're absolutely right.
Right, right, right. So I mean, so when we're talking, so I think we've established that this is on you. Each individual has to take responsibility. You had touched on something when you said in your kind of your step one, you had talked about kind of having that self-loathing and that kind of guilt. Could you kind of go deeper into that and kind of explain what that feeling is like and how you're able to fight against that?
Right. Yeah, definitely, man. But with that said, though, I don't want to feel like I'm putting a total onus on individuals getting out. There is a system in place that is up against people that are getting out. I don't want to take anything away from that. Two out of three people go back within 3 years. Now that's a national statistic. So if you have three people that have a criminal background that are on parole and they're looking around, that's a scary feeling. That's a
Yeah.
really scary feeling, right?
Yep.
All right. So outside of just pulling up your bootstraps, as they say, there does need to be changes in programs and policies around reentry because it is fucked up, man. It's really crazy.
Yeah.
But now I can answer now. Now ask me again your other question. I just make sure I put that out there,
No,
man,
for
because I don't
sure.
want
So
to feel
just
like it's easy.
yeah. With all that in mind, you know, I want to know how, because here's where I'm coming from. I understand that system. I've been in it. So, and this is the system we have. And if brothers like you are strong enough to get out and then speak on that system, then we can have a better opportunity of changing it. So that's where I'm like, I'm trying to get as much information from you to say, how can we strengthen our mind, strengthen our understanding of what's going on as ourselves, as our individuals, so then we can collectively come together and then fight that system. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I want to know,
Right.
how do you fight that self-loathing kind of feeling? How are you able to
How
not
do you
fall
go
into that
deeper,
pitfall?
like you said? Right. Well, I think you had said earlier, going a little deeper with that, right, into the self-loathing and what that feels like. I think you said, right.
Yeah.
Um, it feels like being tired and mad all the time, right? Um, you don't have a lot of patience, and you're not real social.
Okay.
Um, right? Because you're constantly revisiting, you're constantly going over, you're constantly thinking what you did. You're looking at it critically. You can't get past it. That's where the loathing, that's where it comes from. We're like, you're okay. Why did I respond that way? Why did I do this?
Yeah.
And you can't stop thinking about it because everything in your environment reminds you of it. Your wardrobe, the officers, the bars, the sounds, the
Mm,
smells.
mm,
See what I mean? So every second of the day, you're reminded of the worst mistake of your life, and you hate yourself for it.
mm.
You hate yourself for it, especially if you keep going back, right? It
Yeah.
becomes really bad then because you literally are disgusted at your own reflection. Oh
Okay.
my
Okay.
God,
Yep.
what did
Yep.
you do? You're
Yep.
here again,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So for me, it was a little different because it was the first time, but I was there every single day. I had to wake up and look in the mirror. You did this, man. I'm eating this food. I'm putting up with this behavior. I'm going through this. I'm missing out on tons of experiences because of you, right?
Yep.
So when I say self-loathing, it's really tough because in the I always say the real world when you're in prison, right? But in community, you have distractions. You have liquor. You
Mm,
have legal drugs, illegal drugs. You have your social connections. You have pro-social activities like sports and things to get involved in, right? So there's all these things to distract you. When you're incarcerated, there is no distractions. At nine
right.
o'clock, 9:25, every single night you're getting locked in from 9:25 to 6:25 in the morning. It's just you. It's
Yeah.
just you, and you
Yeah.
got to deal with you.
Yep.
So yeah, it gets really deep and it gets really rough. And obviously, the psychological, the therapeutic services, I should say, um, aren't bad. There's just not enough. The
Yeah.
folks that work there in their health services department really try hard, and everyone's in the work for the right reasons, right? They're trying to help people, but when you have these overwhelming number of people, what is it? I think they last said 80 some people could or have some type of mental health diagnosis in our current penal system, right?
Yeah.
So when you have to see 80% of 11,000 people incarcerated in Minnesota, anyways, That's a lot of folks when there's on average usually, I don't know, 2, 3 therapists per facility. So,
Sure.
you're looking at a
Sure.
caseload of maybe 200 people.
Sure.
It's just impossible. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
That makes
So
sense.
there's no one to talk to. There's no one to get there's no help. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's tough. It's really tough.
S-
It's tough, man. I don't know the way to say it. It's just
Yeah,
tough.
yeah. So, to kind of wrap this up, because I want to get into what you're doing now, how people can get involved in some of the
Okay.
projects you got going on, and get it on the positive side. I want to end it on the positive side, but just kind of wrap this up, kind of, to the people out there listening, nobody just kind of, happens. Nobody wakes up and says, "Hey, I want to go to prison." There's things that happen in our childhoods. There's trauma. There's things that happen in our lives, and I think oftentimes, especially in the hood, especially in poor parts, we don't get a lot of empathy for why we end up in these scenarios, in these situations. And I want people to understand that when we are in these situations, there's not a lot of resources, and what might end up happening for the time being is we have to be strong. We have to be resilient. You have to kind of like find brothers like brother Richard here and just be like, hey man, what did you do? Listen to these people, because he's been through some of the darkest moments that a man can go through, and he's been able to climb out through that. And it was with not with the great system that's there to support him. And he did it all, just by being mentally tough. And I think it's important for the people listening that you have to understand you have to be mentally tough. You have to be willing to make the sacrifices, And if you're not, then you might just kind of find yourself in that revolving door. The system it's not, it's called corrections, but they are not correcting anything. So tell us, so you got out, you're doing really well. I see you on social media all the time, man. You're moving and grooving. You're meeting with politicians, man. You're doing things with properties. Tell us what you got going on these days, man.
Right. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Man, a little bit of everything, man. COVID really changed up some things, right? Uh, Before COVID, I like to tell people I was an educator. Um, I was blessed with being able to take technical information and give it back to people in easily digestible ways, right? I can break it down and make people kind of get it, right? So I love educating people. But now with this COVID and this social distancing and these Zoom platforms, what I usually did, which was in person, a lot of coaching and personal and professional development, I can no longer do, right? All right. So with that being said, the 3 services that my consulting company now, my consulting company is McLemore Holdings. I don't know if there's a chat or something, whatever, we put that in, but McLemore Holdings, it is an org, right? .org. Once again, we believe in education first, right? We can educate ourselves out of ignorance in all type of ways, right? We're ignorant in all type of ways. Everyone's ignorant to something, right? So we focus on housing. Housing education is big. That's one of those big, big, big foundational things. And we never talk about it in the traditional educational system. Like if you ever just sit down with your friends and ask them, hey man, how did you learn how to rent a place? How did you learn how to buy your first home? Have you even done that before?
Mm,
Do you know how? You'll get a wide range of answers, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But everyone knows that having a place to live is so important, but it's never taught in our traditional education system. Like we never take the time out to teach people how to move out of their mama's house, which
Mm,
blows my mind, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
one of the big things we do is we do housing education. We do it in all forms and all facets, right? We work with everyone from federal agencies. I train staff at like Deed and Met Council, all the way to I work with homeless individuals who are just trying to figure it out, right?
Okay, okay.
Now, when you hear the word homeless, you're thinking of a guy, pants sagging, family with a sign up on the corner, right? When I say homeless, I'm talking about a college kid who just graduated and no longer has his student housing, right?
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about that young man who's been living with his parents, but he's over 18, right? So he technically is homeless, right? I'm
Mm,
talking about that first time renter who's never done it before.
mm,
So when I say homeless, I'm talking about a wide range of individuals, right?
mm-hmm.
I teach a rotating class at the law school. William Hamlin Mitchell, like I'm teaching college kids. These are going to be lawyers. These are high thinking individuals, but have no idea how to get housing. So
Yeah.
one of the things I do is housing courses, right? I have a full range of continuum courses. The other thing I do is professional development. That's taken a back seat with COVID. I do some Zoom stuff, but for the
When you
most
say
part,
professional development,
now I do consulting.
could you go just a little, just so people get to understand what is that professional development? Because I want people to know exactly what you're doing in case they want to reach out to you.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely, right. Okay, so when we're talking about professional development trainings, right, we're talking about there's a gap somewhere, right? All right. In any job and anything what you do, you're a professional problem solver. That's why you're being employed. Someone is paying you a wage to solve a problem they have, right? And if that job isn't up to par, or if you're disgruntled in any way, shape, or form, there's a disconnect. So when I'm talking about professional development, we're talking about an organic sense, right? What I do is we go in and I have a consultation with whatever leadership they have, and I want to find out where is the disconnect. Why am I here? If everything was going good, you wouldn't need Richard here. We wouldn't be talking about training, right?
Yeah.
And if you want me here just to kind of stamp something for you because we got to get a certain amount of hours, well, then my training may not be for you, right? I really like to go in and work with some folks on some things. So it's organic trainings that are based around what's going on with the agency and where they see some lapses.
Okay.
So for instance, with the Met Council, specifically with housing, they were having some problems with interacting with their clients. They didn't really get it. The case managers didn't really understand it, how to be case managers. So that training was about interacting with their clients and how to do really just wraparound services while maintaining that professionalism, right? Being
Yeah.
hands-on.
Yeah.
Another training I did was for Power People Leadership Institute. These are guys that are coming out of corrections, so they need a more hands-on approach. How do you find that first place, right? How do I do the things I need to do? So it's not only the workforce. Sometimes this development happens with folks that need help in other areas, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's hard for me to say, Will, that I just do one particular
Yeah.
type,
No,
because
I
I really
feel it.
do need to sit down with the organization and say, okay, what are we talking about here? What are we doing? Because I do have a lot of prepackaged stuff. I have some prepackaged stuff around a lot around housing, and really a lot about being a service provider. I've done a lot of trainings around helping people be better service providers and avoid burnout.
Okay.
Anything outside of those two things, I'm going to have to sit down and we'll talk.
What
One of the other things I've been doing recently, I'm sorry, the
No,
last
you
thing
go
I've
ahead.
been
Go ahead.
doing
Go ahead.
is
I'll
consulting.
come back. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, and the last thing I've been doing is consulting, and I want to talk about this with Ramsey County. Ramsey County got 98 million in CARES funding, right? That's federal dollars that has to be spent by December 31st, right? And I'm on a team of folks of 16 of us who are responsible for making sure this money gets out to the community. Now, the reason I wanted to put that out there is because right now I'm struggling with getting community involvement, right?
Mm.
Um, Everyone knows that millions of dollars have been passed down to the federal government to help people, to help individuals to get out this crisis, this pandemic that we're in. And one of the struggles I'm having is getting community involved when Ramsey County has projects that we put together to give away these funds, like putting out RFPs and wanting people to get engaged in services so you can get help with your rent, so you can get help with food, so you can get help with those, those vital and essential needs, right? The money is there. So I just want to put that out there that at least in Ramsey County, the money is there. We're not seeing the community ask for it,
How do they
right?
ask for
So
it? How
one
do
of
they
the things,
find it?
thank you for putting it out there, because I was just going to say one of the things that folks can do is they can just simply get on the computer, get on their phone, or get on their tablet and Google Ramsey County Services. The COVID emergency services come right up on the first page. All you do is click on it. It's a scrolling list of tons of resources that you can get. None of them cost anything. They're all income qualifying. But if we're struggling, and most of us are having some struggles now, either with our business or with our personal finances, we can qualify for this help. Now, I want to speak on this because the money goes away December 31st.
Mm.
December 31st, it goes back to the federal
So it's
government. So
basically
what?
use it or lose it then.
Or lose it,
Okay.
And now this isn't Ramsey County. This is every single county, every single city throughout the United States is having this same thing going on, where they
Okay.
have these resources, but they're having a problem. There's this bottleneck getting them to the community. So what I'm saying, and the reason I'm putting this out there, is anyone listening to this from Ramsey County that are having some struggles, that are having some issues, reach out. My information's on here. You can just Google ramseycounty.usa or whatever their website is, and really look at getting your piece. These are your resources. These are your tax dollars. And now you're in need and you should be getting it. And people just aren't responding.
Mm.
They're just
All
not
right.
responding. I need
I'm
to see
gonna
more community in this money.
I'm a part of the East Side Area Business Association, and I'm going to talk we'll talk this week. We have a big meeting up next tomorrow, actually, with the mayor and the chief of police of St. Paul to talk about some stuff with businesses and policing and stuff. But I'm going to talk with the director and see if we can get some kind of information out there. So I'll get a link from you or something. Maybe you can send that to me and we can get that on our Facebook page there. Last question about what you got going on. Could you tell me what kind of businesses that you're looking for to consult with so we can get that information out there? What is kind of in your wheelhouse?
Thank you. Yeah. So right now I try to stick with, one of the three, right? I'm either doing diversion circles. Now, circle keeping, I didn't get really into that, but I'm a professional circle keeper where we do some diversionary circles for folks where we come in and have those hard conversations in the circle format, respecting all the policies and things, and really the agreements that come with keeping circle, right? So folks out there that understand circles, they'll get this technique, right? One of the other things I'm doing is some of the other businesses I like to work with is really around housing. I'm very, very interested. I'm passionate, and I understand both sides of it, right? As an individual that at one time was homeless, and now someone that's a landlord and soon to be a developer, because I just got involved in a partnership where we're going to start trying to just do our own thing, just build our own stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So knowing both sides, I like to do a lot of consulting work around that, and building out programs, right? My last employer, I built a program for them, a housing program for them that last time I checked, they get about $500,000 in funding from state and federal bodies.
Okay.
So it's a dynamic program. So I really like working with agencies who are getting state or federal dollars and they're trying to build out their program, right? They're trying to build it up. I can definitely do that work for you. And last but not least, man, I really want to get back to educating. Okay, I really want to get back to educating in a few senses. But right now with this Zoom platform, it's a little hard to have those groups, you know what I mean, where you're sitting in front of folks and really engaging. But eventually, if we ever get back to that, I would love to get back to professional developments and just working with bodies, individuals, especially the workforce, and just getting them to that next level.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't say any specific companies, but you kind of get my
Yeah,
buckets, my wheelhouse. You know what I
I just
mean?
wanted to make
It
sure
is
if people
broad.
were out there
Yeah,
listening, they can
it is
find you.
broad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh no, what I usually tell people to do is to go to my website, man, because it's not only me, it's my consulting agency, but I subcontract with folks. So it really depends. It really depends.
What is
And
the
what it is. And
website?
we
What
can
is
let
the,
you
can you
know.
spell it out for us, for the people?
Yes, yes. It's www.mclemoreholdings.org. That is www.mclemore holdings, holdings.org.
All right.
O-R-G.
Thank you.
All right.
So,
All
all
right.
right. So my final question here is, this is called the Permanent Lifestyle Podcast. And I, similar to you, was, kind of running with the wrong crowd, doing some wrong things in my life. And it took me a long time to transition, to get out of that. And I live what I call the permanent lifestyle, meaning that the changes that I've made to my life are permanent. Like, I don't go on a diet, right? I've just changed the way I eat for the rest of my life. I'm all about taking a habit and turning that into a behavior, and then turning that behavior into a lifestyle. Okay. So
I
with
love it.
that being said, my question to you is, the final question that we started asking all our guests is, what does the permanent lifestyle mean to you?
I love that. I love that. So permanent lifestyle means to me, man, is continue to pay it forward, right? You can't enjoy your blessings until you're willing to give, some blessings, right? So the permanent lifestyle means to me, man, is just continue to pay it forward, continue to help folks, man. Thank God for my blessings, thank God for my new baby boy. I got to put him out there because that is a permanent
Yeah.
part of my life forever,
Yes, yes.
right? Man. So yeah, that's really what it is, man. It's just about paying it forward, man, and living a life of servitude, man. I always tell people I'm a servant leader. I'm a
Mhm.
servant leader, man. Tell me what it is and how I can plug in, man. I don't have to lead from the front. Good leaders can lead from the back.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much. That was a great one. That was a great one. Well, look, that's going to wrap up our show for the day. I want to thank my brother Richard, man, for coming on our show, telling your story, just kind of talking about like what it takes to stay out of prison, what's going on behind doors in prison, what can lead up to there, just really sharing and being really open and honest. Now, I really really appreciate you coming on and talking to me and talking to the audience about this. And one last time, man, where can people find you? The website, or can they find you on social media anywhere as well?
Yes, yes, man. I don't do a lot of social media, right? But you can definitely find me online at McLemoreHoldings.org. You can find me on Facebook at McLemore Holdings. And that's really about it. I can only stress myself so far with social media, man.
That's what's up. Well, hey, thank you for everybody for tuning in to this episode of our podcast. Man, we're thankful that we had Brother Richard here with us, and we're thankful that you joined us. And everybody, we hope that the rest of your day, your week, your month, your year is filled with positivity and productivity, man. Thank you very much.